My grandfather, a man so strict he would jail his own blood without hesitation, sat at the head of the dining table. His voice thundered only 3 words, "Who did it?" And the room froze. Then my mother's finger turned toward me. But just as the weight of judgment was about to crush me, the door opened again, and the father I thought was gone forever stepped inside, carrying the truth that could destroy us all. Before we continue, be part of our growing family by hitting that subscribe button. And here's something fun. Share your name and tell us where you're tuning in from in the comments. We might feature you with a shout out in our next video, because your support truly means the world to us. Now, let's proceed. The heavy oak door, scarred with generations of family history, groaned shut behind me, sealing out the crisp autumn air. Inside, the scent of roasting game and old money hung thick, a familiar, unsettling perfume. My stomach churned, a knot of dread tightening with each step towards the dining room. Annual retreat. Annual judgment. Grandfather sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, a regal, unyielding figure etched in granite. His gaze, sharp and unforgiving, swept over the assembled family. A hush fell, heavy as a shroud. He didn't speak often, but when he did, the words were decrees. Who did it? His voice, a low rumble, vibrated through the floorboards. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation, a gauntlet thrown. A collective gasp, barely audible, rippled around the table. Forks clattered against porcelain. My aunt, usually voluble, pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. My uncle, always quick with a joke, sat rigid, his knuckles white against his wine glass. The air grew impossibly thin. Every muscle in my body locked. My mother, poised and elegant at grandfather's right, cleared her throat. Her eyes, usually warm, now held a glint of something cold, something I couldn't quite decipher. "It's your grandson," she said, her voice smooth as silk, yet it cut through the silence like a razor. My breath hitched. Grandson? I was the only one. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Every eye at the table swiveled to me, 100 years of family judgment converging into a single, scorching beam. My aunt's gaze, once fearful, now held a flicker of pity, quickly replaced by condemnation. My uncle shifted, avoiding my eyes. My cousins, usually quick to tease, stared with a mixture of shock and disgust. Shame, hot and prickly, crawled up my neck. What had I done? My mind raced, frantically sifting through every transgression, every minor misstep, but nothing fit the magnitude of grandfather's ominous question. "What are you talking about?" I managed, my voice a reedy whisper, barely recognizable as my own. My throat felt like sandpaper. My mother offered a small, sad smile, a performance perfected over years. "Oh, darling, you know what I'm talking about. The incident." Incident? What incident? My confusion was absolute, a swirling vortex in my skull. The accusation hung in the air, a phantom limb I couldn't feel, couldn't identify. Grandfather leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. "The trust fund. The missing shares. They vanished this morning." His voice was devoid of emotion, a judge pronouncing sentence. "Trust fund. Shares, asterisk." My world tilted. I knew nothing of this. My life, at 19, revolved around college applications and part-time jobs, not intricate family finances. I don't understand," I stammered, my gaze darting from my mother's placid face to my grandfather's stony one. "I didn't touch any trust fund. I wouldn't even know how." "Don't play coy, dear," my mother cooed, her hand reaching across the table, her fingers brushing my arm. The touch, usually comforting, now felt like a viper's caress. "We all know you've been struggling with your tuition. And your expensive tastes." Expensive tastes? Asterisk. My expensive tastes amounted to the occasional video game. A wave of ice-cold realization washed over me. This wasn't just a mistake. This was deliberate. Her words, so carefully chosen, painted a picture of a desperate, grasping young man. "That's a lie," I cried, my voice cracking. "I haven't touched a penny of anything." "The evidence suggests otherwise," grandfather stated, his voice flat. A transfer, made from an offshore account linked to your mother's banking profile, but with your access codes. My access codes? Asterisk, my mind reeled. I had shared my laptop, my phone, everything with her. She had always helped me with online forms, with setting up accounts. A cold dread began to solidify in my gut. No, she's lying. She's trying to frame me. I shouted, my chair scraping back as I pushed to my feet. The sudden movement startled everyone. My mother sighed, a theatrical display of weary disappointment. This is precisely what I feared. The denial. The outburst. It's always the same pattern, isn't it? Her eyes, still fixed on me, held a strange, triumphant glint. What pattern? I demanded, my voice raw. Before she could answer, a sharp rap echoed from the front door, cutting through the suffocating tension. Everyone flinched, their heads snapping towards the sound. Grandfather's brow furrowed slightly. The butler, usually a phantom presence, appeared at the dining room entrance, his face a mask of polite confusion. Sir, there's a visitor. He insists on seeing you immediately. Grandfather's eyes narrowed. I am not expecting anyone. He says it's urgent, sir, and that he has information. A shiver ran down my spine. Information? The door creaked open further, and a man stepped into the light. He was gaunt, his face etched with lines that hadn't been there 5 years ago. But his eyes held an intensity that was instantly familiar. A gasp escaped my lips. Father! The word was a choked whisper, a ghost from a past I had tried to bury. He stood there, framed in the doorway, a stranger and yet undeniably him. My father. The criminal. The man who had abandoned us. My mother's face, usually so composed, crumpled. Her jaw dropped, her eyes wide with undisguised terror. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her skin a sickly white. What are you doing here? She hissed, her voice devoid of its earlier composure, laced with pure venom. My father's gaze, unwavering, locked onto her. A ghost of a smile, grim and chilling, touched his lips. I'm here to clear my name, Evelyn, and to save our son. His voice was rough, gravelly, but it carried an undeniable weight. Grandfather, ever the pragmatist, cut through the shock. What is the meaning of this, Robert? You were indisposed. Indisposed in a federal prison, grandfather, my father replied, his eyes never leaving my mother. For a crime I didn't commit. A crime she orchestrated. My mother let out a strangled sound, a mix of a gasp and a choke. You're delusional. You were caught red-handed. Was I? My father stepped further into the room, a worn leather satchel clutched in his hand. Or was I set up? Just like you're trying to set up our son right now. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and undeniable, confirming the terrifying realization that had just begun to dawn on me. My mother's performance. Her carefully chosen words. The access codes. It all clicked into place, a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. What are you talking about, Robert? Grandfather's voice was sharper now, a dangerous edge to it. My father ignored him, his gaze still fixed on my mother. 5 years, Evelyn. 5 years I spent in a cage, thinking about you. Thinking about what kind of monster could do that to her own husband. To her own family. He paused, his chest heaving slightly. But I had time. Time to think. Time to plan. And time to gather evidence. He reached into his satchel, pulling out a thick stack of papers and a small, encrypted USB drive. He placed them on the table with a definitive thud. This, he began, his voice gaining strength, is the real story of your missing $1 million, grandfather. The one Evelyn stole 5 years ago. And these, he gestured to the USB, are the records of her attempts to do the exact same thing to our son today. My mother, her face now a mask of pure fury and panic, lunged forward. You liar. You rotten, convicted criminal. Don't listen to him, grandfather. He's trying to poison your mind. My father didn't flinch. I have bank statements, grandfather. IP logs. Forensic analysis of the transfer. Her own communications with the offshore account. Using encrypted channels she thought no one could trace. He looked directly at me then, his eyes softening slightly. She copied your access codes, son. She cloned your devices. She planned to make it look like you transferred the funds to a ghost account, then slowly siphon it off, just like she did with my missing million. The room erupted in whispers. My aunt gasped again, this time with genuine horror. My uncle stared, his jaw hanging slack. "This is insane," my mother shrieked, her composure completely shattered. She was no longer the elegant, sad woman. She was a cornered animal. "He's a convict. A con man. You can't believe a word he says." "The evidence speaks for itself, Evelyn," my father said, his voice cold as ice. "The same evidence that exonerated me just last week. The evidence that the federal agents are already reviewing." Grandfather, a man who valued truth above all else, picked up the first document. His eyes, usually so impassive, widened slightly as he scanned the page. He flipped to the next, then the next, his breathing growing shallow. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the rustle of paper. These are authentic," Grandfather finally murmured, his voice barely a whisper. He looked up, his gaze fixing on my mother, a chilling blend of disbelief and incandescent rage. "Evelyn, you framed your own husband? For $1 million. My mother, seeing the game was truly up, burst into tears, a pathetic, theatrical display. "He forced me. He threatened me. He was going to leave us destitute." "Lies," my father interjected, his voice flat. "She wanted control. She wanted everything. And she was willing to sacrifice anyone to get it." He turned to me, his eyes filled with a pain I had never seen before. "I'm so sorry, son. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." I stared at him, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. 5 years. 5 years I had believed my father was a criminal, a thief, a disgrace. 5 years of shame, of whispered rumors, of my mother's carefully constructed narrative. And now, in a single, brutal moment, it was all shattered. The man I had resented, the man I thought had abandoned me, had been a victim. And my mother was the monster. You told me he was a monster," I whispered, my voice trembling as I looked at my mother. "You told me he deserved to be locked away." Her sobs intensified, but her eyes, darting wildly, still held no genuine remorse, only fear. Grandfather slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing through the room. "Enough." His voice, though not loud, carried the weight of absolute authority. He looked at my father, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Robert, you have my deepest apologies. And my gratitude." He then turned his steely gaze back to my mother. "Evelyn, you have disgraced this family. You have betrayed us all." He picked up his phone, his fingers moving with grim determination. "Get the police here. Now." My mother let out a wail, a truly guttural sound of despair. "No. Grandfather, please. I'm your daughter-in-law. Think of the scandal. You should have thought of that when you stole my money and framed my son," Grandfather stated, his voice devoid of pity. "And when you tried to frame my grandson." The front door burst open again, this time admitting 2 uniformed officers, their presence an immediate, stark reality. My father must have called them. My mother's wails turned into frantic pleas, but they fell on deaf ears. The officers, briefed by my father on their way, moved swiftly. "Evelyn Hayes, you are under arrest for fraud, grand larceny, and attempted obstruction of justice." As they led her away, her eyes met mine one last time. There was no love, no regret, only a desperate, animalistic hatred. The mask was completely gone. The room remained silent after they left, the scent of roasting game now tainted by the stench of betrayal. I stood there, trembling, the weight of 5 years of lies crushing me. My father, seeing my distress, walked towards me. He looked older, tired, but his eyes, though filled with sorrow, also held a deep, unwavering love. He reached out, his hand hovering uncertainly. "Son." I didn't hesitate. I threw myself into his arms, burying my face in his shoulder. The rough fabric of his jacket, the faint scent of prison soap and old leather, was suddenly the most comforting thing in the world. I held on tight, tears streaming down my face. Tears for the lost years, for the shattered illusions, and for the father I had finally, truly found. He held me just as tightly, his hand stroking my hair. "It's okay, son," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "It's okay now." The revenge wasn't mine, but his. And it was complete. The truth, like a relentless predator, had finally caught its prey. The family, broken and shamed, would never be the same. But for the first time in 5 years, I felt a fragile sense of hope. My father was back, and the monster was gone. The dinner, of course, was abandoned. The family dispersed, whispering, their faces grim. Grandfather remained at the head of the table, staring at the empty chair where my mother had sat. The weight of his disappointment was palpable. My father gently pulled back, his hands resting on my shoulders. "We have a lot to talk about, son. A lot to catch up on." His eyes, though still carrying the shadow of his ordeal, held a spark of determination. "And a lot to heal." I nodded, unable to speak, my throat still tight with emotion. The world felt raw, exposed, but also, strangely, lighter. The lies that had choked me for so long were finally stripped away. The past was a wound, but now, finally, it could begin to mend. The retreat, meant to celebrate family, had instead ripped it open, exposing its darkest secrets. But in doing so, it had also brought a father back to his son and the truth to light. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us.